All right. All right. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening, ladies.
Good
Good,
evening.
Good evening.
good evening. Happy Monday. Happy Monday.
Yes.
I hope you all had a great weekend. And
Yes.
we are back again Monday, the Woman to Woman show on the New You Nation Network. And we greet each and every one of you that will join this evening. And we hope that you will find the discussion that we will have this evening to be impactful. And so we are going to start as we normally start. And I will just start since I'm already talking. I am Theodora Carter. I am a certified life coach and HR consultant. I am passionate about two things. One, helping women live the life that they desire and deserve to live, and helping small businesses manage their HR businesses in a way that benefits them and allows them to grow, while I, as their external partner, focus on the HR component of their business. And so I am grateful for these ladies here tonight. I will honestly say it's amazing. My energy was a little low. I'm just going to be real honest. Just seeing their faces lifted me up. So I am grateful for really good sister friends that bring energy that will lift you up when you know you need it.
Indeed, indeed.
Mhm.
Well, I'll go. I am Sheila Isom. I am an insurance claims professional. I've been doing this for a long time. And I am also venturing into being a businesswoman, but with several businesses. I am an independent stylist for Color Street. I sell nail strips, and I am also a notary public. And I am grateful for appreciation and acknowledgement.
Mm.
Mm.
There's some things that, that we need. Let's admit we need to feed our ego as well as our soul. So especially when you least expect it, but at any time when people show that they appreciate you and what you do and what you have done, makes you feel good.
Agree. That is awesome. My name is
Yes.
Manetta Fields. I am the owner of Holistically Motivated. I have over 30 years of experience as a healthcare professional, so I'm bringing that conventional to the holistic perspective and supporting us as women in our wellness goals using natural solutions. I also am a certified coach specializing in Gallup strengths. I am grateful, as I stated to the ladies just before we went live, that I was able to spend Mother's Day with my mom for the first time since 2019. We know that she went through a battle in her health. So she's
Mm.
well enough to travel, she and my dad, to spend Mother's Day here with me and my family. And when I tell you, there's nothing like being able to spend that quality time with those you love. So I am truly grateful for that. I'm grateful for spending that time with you all tonight as well.
Wow. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. So let's get into this topic, rising above fear and uncertainty. And, I think it's like a great topic because, Sheila already alluded to it, right? By just being really honest, right? About what we all need at times, right? And so, I think another area where a lot of us struggle with is actually being honest about having fear and uncertainty, because I think some people see it as a sign of weakness, right? I think some
Mhm.
people are afraid to admit that they are fearful of things or uncertain. But and then I think some people, especially I would say, and I'm speaking for myself, sometimes as Christians, right, you don't want to speak that, right, because the Bible says otherwise. But the other side of it is that God appreciates it when we are honest, because then
Right.
he can pour into us to help us in those areas that we struggle with, right, in the flesh. And so I'm excited to have this topic and discuss this topic tonight, and hopefully we can help some other people deal with their fears and
Mm.
uncertainties. So where have you ladies struggled or had challenges, or even like what comes to mind when you look at that rising above fear and uncertainty?
The first thing that comes to mind for me is uncertainty can be the root of fear.
Mm.
Mm.
When you're uncertain about something, the confidence is not there. And of course, close behind it is the fear of that thing, because of course we create a scenario that's usually worse than it actually is, uh, leading to anxious feelings, right? So just being clear on why. Why am I feeling this fear? Where is this uncertainty coming from? And the example that immediately came to mind for me was what I'm actually doing right now.
Mm.
I would never before be on a platform not having everything I need already planned out, with everything that needs to be said and all the topics, already defined, and all of the background and the research articles. And, that's me. I need the information. So being
Yeah.
here, having this discussion was a source of fear for me initially.
Mm-hmm.
And so, even though there's an element of uncertainty when we get on, because we don't always know what the topic is going to be, just
All we
knowing.
know 5 minutes before.
That, right?
So, just knowing though that I'm here with people who love me and I'm supported, as Sheila was saying, acknowledged and encouraged in this space, and knowing that what I have to offer is my experience. So there's no judgment or criticism beyond that, right? So sometimes we're fearful based on what we think others will think or say. So when
Yeah.
you remove that, this is my story and my perspective, then, and the more you do something, the more comfortable you get.
Right, right.
So here I sit, able to express myself without feeling like I'm gonna pass out.
Yeah. And it's so funny because I think I'm gonna say that I know I experienced the same thing, right? When Trey was like, "Oh, we're gonna do this," and I'm like, "We're gonna do what?" Right? And then when we were left, like she was like, "Oh, I have other things to do, and we're gonna do it," right? It was that, oh my God, are we gonna be able to do this? But the funny thing is, I will say that still, although I'm getting more comfortable with it, right? I still kind of feel that whenever it's time to go on, right, a little bit of that uncertainty and fear. But the other thing, like you said, it's great to be in that space of, having other people to share it with. And Sheila, I'm gonna ask you to speak, but let's acknowledge that Regina just came in back.
Hey,
Regina.
Hey
Regina.
y'all, hi.
So, yeah, welcome back from vacation.
Thank you.
Yes, we're happy you're here.
I am too.
Wonderful
Thank
to
you.
see you.
Thank you. Lovely to see y'all too.
So Sheila, what say you?
I think with me, it's fear of not so much as branching out, but stepping away from the norm. Like this, it's like, okay, I'm fine with doing the speaking. It's part of my profession. I'm accustomed to it. But to think but this kind of format, this platform, to think that it could lead to something that I, kind of dreamed of as a younger person, like, hey, I can do what Oprah does, that kind of thing. But putting in the back of my head that, that's probably not very realistic. But branching out from the norm is something that most people are going to say, I can't do that. That's not what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to work my 9 to 5, come home and tend to the family, and then start everything all over again. What is this? Trying to do something different, especially as you get older, right? Because you're already kind of sort of stuck in your ways, and You're
Mhm.
halfway interested in keeping up with what's going on, what's the new trends and what's happening with the times. I'm still trying to figure out this whole social media thing. I have not even mastered texting. I think about
Mhm.
all of the features that I have on my phone that I have no idea how to use, and knowing that for some of the things that I have in my mind, I could probably use a lot of those features on my phone. So I should take the opportunity to actually learn them so that I can continue to branch out. But I think that also lends to my fear of
Mhm.
branching out, because if I don't know it, I can't do it.
Mm.
Mm. Oh my
So
God.
trying to get out of that is my difficulty.
Mm.
All right. So Regina, are
Yes.
you back from vacation, in the sun and the fun and all of that? You
Well,
ready?
I'm ready. Let me just say before I share what you know my 5 cent inflation is 5 cent. It's not 2 cent. Um, um, I had a wonderful time celebrating a dear friend of mine. Um, celebrating her birthday, and what's so great about it is I realized for the first time in a long time, my energy was always focused around the intentions for my children. Like my prayers, my desires, something that I wanted uh, desperately was always directed towards my children. So just whatever happened to me, or whatever I needed to do for as everyday life, work and responsibilities, that was just part of the situation. But I didn't intentionally ask for or hope for anything unless it was connected to what was best for my children. For
Mhm.
this trip, I
Mhm.
actually had the intention, and I had no negative expectations that anything but a great time would happen, that everything
Mhm.
would fall into place. I didn't accept any negative, any. I didn't entertain any of that. The same way that I've been for my now adult children, I was like that for me for the first time in a long time. My intentionality was on everything that needed to happen, that it would go well. I didn't entertain what if or
Mm.
maybe.
Mhm.
None of the anything that could have happened that was negative was not in my space. I wouldn't even let
Mhm.
anybody come bring that energy to me. And I realized, wow, that was like and I was so excited for it. I'm so grateful to have had that experience, because so many other things opened up by me saying yes, it's going to happen, versus oh my goodness, I don't know. You know, I didn't let any of those creepy, crawly, negative Nellies rest in my space,
Mhm.
and I was just saying, wow, Father, how many other things if I would have focused with that
Mm.
level of intentionality
Mm.
as it related to other aspects in my family, my businesses, my
Mhm.
career. And so it just taught me, like sis, I got you. I feel like he was saying I always had you, but you had to focus and want what I have for you, and you had to
Mhm.
be willing to work towards it for it to come to fruition, even against the obstacles of what somebody else may see as not going to happen. You had to trust in me, and I totally said my father's going to allow me to go on the trip, and everything I need will be provided for. And every time something that looked like it was going to be negative, I said, "Oh no, that's going to work itself out, because fathers know I'm going on this trip."
Mhm.
Daddy.
So I love that
Everything, everything.
because think about it, right?
Yeah.
Everything you just said
Hmm.
speaks to the topic, right?
Yep.
Oh,
That fear
okay.
and uncertainty, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Because what you took us to into the space of how do you get over it, get past it, right? And a lot of it is around that intentionality, right? Like you
Yes.
literally had to speak into yourself, right?
Mhm.
The fact that I'm not going to be worried, I'm not going to be uncertain, I'm not going
Nope.
to whatever. And so, by doing that, I mean, and sure, right? We always fall back into it, but
Hmm.
I feel like everything you said really was important to the conversation. Because I think that, I mean, I'm big on intention, right?
Right.
But I think sometimes we forget how important intention is to move us forward in so many spaces in our lives.
So you're right, and I just want to preface that by saying, when I said yes, because she told me a year ago that she wanted to do something for her birthday.
Mhm.
So, like I'm learning how to do now is I prayed on it, and I got a
Mm.
clear yes, you can go. So when I got it from the Holy Spirit that it was a clear yes, you can go. So my attitude was, I'm going wherever it is, whatever we're going to do, whatever it needs to take for to make that happen, it's going to happen. And the reason why it's going to happen is because I was told that it was going to happen, because I
Mm.
went to the Father first, and when I got that yes, then my yes, his yes was my yes.
Mm.
So instead of letting
Mm.
other people interject their thoughts of, oh, you going on a cruise and you got to be kept this and that, I was like, yeah, that's, thank you for, matter of fact, I didn't even say too much to people because I didn't want them putting their stuff. I didn't want
That,
their sugar in my Kool-Aid. So I decided that I was going to just leave what I do, my business, okay, and they can keep
mm.
their sugar because I don't know what type of sugar they rocking with. I know how I like my Kool-Aid. And since I got a yes, I was not entertaining, and I knew the people, and some of them really loved me. That's the thing, y'all. I know that a couple of people I would have told it to, they love me, and they
Yeah.
still are the negative Nellies. I was like, yeah,
Mm.
nonsense. Where you going? Where you leave? Where you? No, 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 no. Did you get your passport yet? Well, no, I'm not talking about that with you. Everything's fine. It's working this out. It's going to be fine. That was my whole attitude. So one, I knew to pray. Once I got a clear green light that the answer was yes, everything else had to line up with that yes. So instead of looking for the no's and the things that could go wrong, because we all know things could go wrong,
Mhm.
my thing
Mhm.
was whatever happened is going to be
Mm.
overshadowed by my yes, because I'm going.
There you
Yeah.
go.
And
I
so
mean,
I did, yeah.
I agree.
So that's why I knew that I was going, because first he told me yes, and I believed in the yes he told me. So when the Father
Mhm.
told me yes, I believed in the yes he told me, and then whatever else happened along that way, if as long as I followed his direction on where to go, what to do, and when to do it, I was going, and I did exactly the formula he gave me, and that's why I was able to have such a lovely time, because I did it the way he said to do it.
Great.
And
So,
when I
Netta, what
tell
do
you, yeah,
I'm
okay.
sorry. I thought
And
you
I'm just saying,
were.
I was just so excited about it, because this is the first time I realized that I completely trusted in God, my
Mm.
Father, for everything.
Oh,
Whereas before I was trusting in what I could do, what Regina
Mm.
could
Ah,
make
yeah.
happen.
yeah.
I trusted in Him completely, not in me, and everything happened the way it was supposed to. So that's what I'm. That's yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because today I actually picked up a book that, DeForest B. Sorry, my former pastor wrote. And the title was, when you said that, the title of the book is Say Yes When Life Says No.
Mm,
And so that, sometimes I keep a lot of books over here in my office because depending on how my day is going, right, I'll
right.
pick one of them up, right, to refer to something. But Netta, jump in and
I'm just thinking of the mindset shift.
yeah,
That's what happened,
it's
right?
powerful.
Yes.
The mindset shift. And the mind is so, like you said, it's so powerful. What we think controls how we respond.
Mm.
And so if you're fearful, if you're apprehensive, if you're a
Mhm.
scaredy cat, that's how you show up, right?
Yeah,
But walking in confidence, knowing, Regina knew, she had a knowing
yeah.
all things would work together for her
For the
good.
Yes.
And so that's a great lesson, a great takeaway, a great strategy.
yeah.
There's a strength called connectedness in the Gallup world, and connectedness is knowing that all things will work out well. Or just the knowing of there's
Mhm.
no coincidences. You know, it's going to happen the way it's supposed to happen. That releases the fear, the uncertainty, the anxiety. That releases that, which is why you were able to have such a great time, because you released all that. It's like, I don't even have to worry about all of these, how it's going to all happen, how it's all going to unfold. I know it's going to work out for the good.
Right.
And so working on that mindset is definitely a huge piece of overcoming fear and uncertainty. Because again, the stories, your experiences, the things that we've gone through in life can either hold us back or push us forward.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's so funny because when Sheila was speaking before, right, one of the things that clicked for me that I wrote down is when she was saying that, you know, one of the things is the things that hold us back, right? And put that fear in us is like where we'll say, you know, is this realistic, right? Like we're all doing something that we never thought we would do, right? But because in our minds, right, we're like, oh, this isn't even realistic, right? There's no way we would be doing this, right? That begins to set up some of the, like you set the fear and uncertainty in your mind because of what you speak. So, you know, as coaches and as believers, right, we all understand the power of the mind. Right. And we also all understand that that's the first place that we're attacked.
Yes.
Right. Which is why it's important to be mindful of what's going through, what's filtering through, how are you dealing with things, you know. If Regina, the other Regina, because this is really Gina, and if Regina was here, right, she would talk about the fact that, you know, we're never too old, right? How some of us get stuck in the fact that we're too old to do something, right? So all of those things that, you know, as you begin to think about, you know, what am I fearful of? Why do I feel uncertain? Because you guys know I'm gonna bring it up, my struggle going live, right? Right. I don't know what it is, right? But you know, lately in my mind, I'm like, you know, baby steps, like you could do this, right? But it's really like you just programming your mind to do it because it's not easy.
Sure. I looked up an article on the American Psychological Association. It says 10 tips for dealing with the stress of uncertainty. People react differently to uncertainty, but you can take some simple steps to build your resilience in uncertain times. And like we're all doing, do it afraid. Just because you're afraid doesn't mean you don't do what you're supposed to do, right? Accepting that there will be uncertainty, accepting that can free you so that you can focus on what is in your control. So what the first tip that says, be kind to yourself. And we can find that hard to do. We are our worst critics at times.
Yes.
Just be kind to yourself. I think of it sometimes when I encourage others or encourage my children. You know, we are the biggest cheerleaders for others. Turn that thing within.
Yeah, I mean that's so true. It's true because I could give people the best advice. I could rah be a cheerleader, whatever, right? And then I'm sitting back and I'm like, what's going on, right? Why take your own advice, right? Like why is it so hard to take your own advice?
Well, you know the thing about you think about it, it gets back to something that Netta said about other people's perceptions, because if you are cheering yourself on, who's going to know, right? If you're giving yourself that grace, you're giving yourself that forgiveness, you're giving yourself that favor, right, that you bestow upon others, who's going to know? So we concern ourselves with the fact that, you know, I can't, you know, pat myself on the back too much because then somebody's going to think either I have a huge ego or I'm conceited or I'm a narcissist, but that's not even the case. So we use that as an excuse, right, to let our fear take over.
Yes,
for sure. I agree. The next tip is reflect on past successes. I always call it collecting evidence.
That's
I like that.
That's good. I like that.
Yeah.
Because we do forget, right? It's kind of like, collecting past evidence of the things that you've done, but also the things that, because I will tell you, right? Like this week, right? Like God always shows up. And, he always shows up by sending me something in the mail unexpectedly that I could cash and put in the bank.
Amen. Amen.
Right? And so it's kind of like, but also just the things that, you yourself bring yourself through. So but I like that collected evidence.
Yeah. We've done hard things.
Yes.
And like the statement goes, do it afraid. We've done it afraid.
Mm-hmm.
And perfection is never the goal, which is the hindrance for a lot of inaction, right? We get stuck in looking at perfection. If that's the goal, then everybody should quit.
Yeah.
Because none of us are going to be perfect. But should that even be the goal? Just do what it is your purpose to do, whether it's for you or for others. Do it afraid.
Yeah. And know that, right? It's part of, it's kind of like the failing forward, right? Fear is part of the process, just like failing is part of the process, right? Because I think sometimes if you think about it too much, for me, sometimes if I'm not afraid, then I'm like, okay, something wrong, right? Because there are some things that you should think twice about, right? To make sure.
Use wisdom.
Yeah, right. Because that's where the wisdom comes in, right? And so sometimes you got to know when the fear is good, right? And then you got to discern, right, through prayer, whether or not it is good fear or bad fear. Because sometimes there's a reason why you're fearful of something, because you may not be led. Maybe you're not supposed to be doing it.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. There's a fear that can keep us in place.
Yes.
Yes. I also think, like you said, it collected evidence, even from something that we may have considered not the best experience or a trying situation. The fact that we're here, or the fact that whoever's listening to us right now or will listen to the replay, the fact that you are past that situation meant that there was a strength that you overcame that thing. So whether it was professionally, something happened at work, or a relationship or family, and you've gotten through that, it's important to look at the evidence of your strength and how you overcame a thing. Because when we go through similar encounters, we're gonna need that, like Netta said, to say, okay, wait, but this feels familiar, but what did I do in that circumstance where I got through it? So to have that, that tool of your accomplishments or your spiritual strength, to say that I got through that, I'm equipped and I could get the tools to get through this situation too, or to do a thing that I may not have done before. But look at the other chances I took, and look out some of the positive outcomes that came out of it, even though sometimes it was a little messy, it wasn't clear. But when I got it clear, I did a solid job. So it's important to look at those different aspects of our accomplishments, and even the things like Theo said about failing forward. Well, what did I learn from that? I won't do that again. Like, that didn't work. So, don't do that twice, sis, because, the first time we all had to talk about it, because, it wasn't good. So just keeping the evidence of what we did well, what we came through, and what we know not to do again. Those are the things that fortify us and help us move forward. And then I'm going to keep saying it because I'm so hyped, y'all. I'm so hyped. I'm just so hyped. Take it to the Lord in prayer.
Absolutely.
Look for His word. I'm not saying it for you because I know I'm preaching to the choir, but I'm just saying, take it to the Lord in prayer. If we're nervous about it, there's a scripture on it. There's a chapter that's been written that will speak to our situations today
Mm-hmm.
to get clarity and support. And then y'all reach out to your elders. Sometimes there are men and women that have done what we are thinking about doing, and they don't mind pouring their wisdom into us, even at our ages. I speak to
Mm-hmm.
my elders that are in their 70s and stuff, and they still doing the doggone thing because they've done it. And now they look at me like, girl. I'm like, girl, I got grown children, but they like, to me, you're a child because I'm in my
Yeah.
80s. I'm yes, ma'am, yes, sir, right? So
Yeah.
we have to look at the village that we do have around us to give us the example. Where maybe I didn't try before, but I can listen to the lessons they learned from what they did, and I'm listening to the wisdom now. So don't be afraid to also look at your accomplishments. Look at what Netta said. Look at your receipts, so to speak, but listen to your elders about how they overcame certain things.
Yeah.
So, yes,
What's the
I'll
next
hype
one
y'all.
then?
The next one is develop a new skill. Regina mentioned tools.
Mm-hmm.
I
The
remember
toolkit.
Sheila, right? I remember Sheila going back and becoming a notary public. I mean, us becoming coaches. Regina doing
Yeah.
her studying of culinary art. She took what she had already knew, what she knew, and built on it. Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So develop a new skill. Uncertainty can come from just not having experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
and wisdom also. You spoke about that. The things that we don't know how to do doesn't mean we can't get them done through others. It
Right.
doesn't mean that
Yes.
we have to do certain things. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not the Canva queen, but there are people that I can reach out to and say, hey, this is what I need. You know, that's a simple example, but there are many examples. If you're not the expert, but you know an
Right.
expert or know somebody who
Yes.
knows an expert, use your network.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest lessons I have learned as I've journeyed on this road of entrepreneurship, right? Is to stop spending so much time making myself learn something, like Sheila said, like, because I'm pretty good with technology, but there's certain things I'm like, and so there are times when I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna call somebody or find somebody for this, right? Because how much time will you waste, right, on trying to learn this thing that you may not be meant to learn or master.
Right.
Right. That's why they have other people that know things that you may not
Right.
know.
Right.
Exactly. The next one is avoid dwelling on things you can't control.
Hello, somebody.
Don't we
Hello,
talk about that
somebody.
a lot?
Boy, you ain't said, but that's a whole one right there. We could do a whole
We
topic
can have
on
a
that
whole
alone.
that's
On
a whole
that one
topic
right
by
there,
itself.
Netta. We could do that.
Oh my goodness. The dwelling part is what's standing out for me.
Mhm.
That means you're stationary.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm.
You're stuck. But that's why you're stuck, right? Because you're dwelling on this thing that you can't control. So when you're sitting in it, you're sitting in it, you're sitting in it until you realize that, you know what, I need to get out of it. And I mean, I will say I've made progress in that area. Like, I now know when I'm be like, you know what, I'm just going. I have no. There's what now. I ask myself, what can I control in this situation? Right? And then when I figure out what I can control, I say, okay, I'm gonna handle that and I'm gonna leave the rest. And sometimes, it's nothing I can control. So I'm like, I'm gonna go to Regina side and be like, Lord, you got this, right?
Yes.
How you gonna work it out? Right?
Yes.
Right.
So, what's something that you've dwelt on that you couldn't control? Now that you're aware of it, you wish you hadn't. So, what's an example of that? Dwelling on a thing that you can't control. what would you say that is for you?
I would say for me, it would probably be in the area of just like a breakup, like the breakup that I went through, right? Where, you know, dwelling so much on getting that apology and that person and you know what they're doing and what like I had no control over that person's feelings, why they did what they did, you know, whether or not I would get an apology, whether or not it would be like I had no control. Like the minute I was able to release that, like I wish I had released it sooner, but I also wish I had recognized it sooner because not doing that put me into a state of functional depression, right? Because you know, I struggle with, you know, situational depression, right? And so that situation kind of put me in a state of where there was a lot of uncertainty. There was a lot of just angst. And, you know, because I was so concerned about this other person that it took me a while to really focus on my healing, you know.
You know, I hear, you know, when we started our conversation off and Aminetta talked about, you know, being able to spend time and have our mother over for the first time since 2019. And that resonated with me because that was the last time I saw my father alive. He turned 80 in 2019 and we all went to North Carolina and we surprised him, his kids. We surprised him for his birthday. Right. And that was something that he never, ever, ever expected. And then what happens? COVID hits, you know? So, and I had just in 2020, I had just gained more vacation days because they changed the paid time off policy. And I'm thinking, oh, great. Now I can go down to see my father more. And the next time I saw my father was when he was in his coffin in 2021. So for the longest time, I just, you know, I was thinking I should have, you know, I should have done things differently. I had an opportunity like a month or two before he died to maybe make it down to see him. I could have, you know, and we talked about it before, the could have, would have, should have. Yes. And then I had to realize, I was like, but it wasn't in your control because it wasn't as if prior to COVID, we weren't seeing him. Right. You just had to be selective about when you went, had to make sure that the kids were, you know, out of school and things like that. But I had to come to terms with the fact that that was not what was supposed to happen. Me getting down to see him as often as I thought I was. Me not being able to see him in a year and a half. I had no control over that. What I did have control over was how many times we talked to each other on the phone. You know, what I did have control over was anything I could send him in the mail. I had to gradually learn to let that go. And that was very fearful for me because I don't know. I guess I thought maybe somehow or another it would kind of diminish my last memories of him. Like that one day, he was so happy because he had all 4 of his children in one place at one time. And that hadn't happened in many years. So, you know, just thinking that I could have been there a little bit more frequently. It's like, COVID, you messed up my plans. But I could not control that. Right. And inevitably, I realized that that's not what was meant to be. That's not what God had planned. I wasn't supposed to be down there as frequently as I thought I should have been.
And focusing on the time that you did have and that memory of celebrating with him, I'm sure that could help lead, you know, to where you are now.
Yeah, it certainly does.
It's so true. I remember experiencing that, right? You know, with my dad, right? Thinking, you know, if I had called him on this day instead of this day, right? Would that have changed the situation, right? And then you realize that, you know, and my aunt said it, you know, like like you said, Sheila, right? Like it wasn't, it was meant the way, because God has already ordered our steps, right? From the minute we
Absolutely.
come,
Yep.
the minute we come out of the womb, right? He's already orchestrated, our time spent here on earth. So I'm really starting to recognize the importance of what's between the dash.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
You've got
Yes.
that poem, right, of what's between the dash. So I'm really starting to realize the importance of that dash. What's in between that dash.
Yep. How you lived your life, how you treated people, how you made them feel while you were here.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for me, it would be accepting. I think I shared that I have a cousin, Emily Meggett. She had just written a cookbook, Gullah Geechee cookbook in 2022. And she was 89 years old
Mhm.
when she wrote the book.
Wow.
And she's my dad's first cousin, but she's more like to me, an elder, right? Because she's 89 and I'm not. Right? So I was super excited. I asked my father to get me an autographed copy of the book. I'm using the recipe for the book, and I'm just so in awe of the history and all that she was able to pour into the book. And then to realize that it took her 20 years to write this book. Long story short, my vision had been that I would go down south to Modesto, South Carolina, and that I would go sit at her feet and just listen to her and share the history of my great grandfather, which is Hutchinson, and just the history of the house that she lived in. And that didn't happen because she passed away in April. And
Wow.
so my son went down and he spent time with my family, with my dad and stuff, and he got to see her, and he took pictures with her and stuff like that. And I had to accept that as much as I wanted it to happen, it didn't. But I had to look at the blessing that she left, the legacy of who she was, and how she was able to pass that on in her cookbook, not only the recipes but the history of our family, and how they lived off the land and that sort of stuff. And I had to resign myself. And my father was like, "Listen, you may not have got to meet her, but I told her how much she meant to you."
Mm.
And I said, "Okay." So I didn't get to meet the mom, but I'm definitely not taking no chances. I'm going to go meet my cousins, which are her sons and daughters,
Mm-hmm.
and let them know how much of an impact she made on my life in the short time that I got to know of her, because she so reminded me of my grandmother. My grandmother was like my first best friend. So just the connectivity, the food, the things that they fixed, that just took me all the way back to when I was a little girl. And I had to accept the fact that it wasn't supposed to be that way. What I wanted wasn't necessarily what was supposed to be. And so I I had
Yep.
to accept that. And but I had to take away, I got all these blessings that she left in a little bit in a little bit of time that I knew who she was, to know that she's part of I'm part of, like, that's my family. Like, what an honor, right? So the legacy and the responsibility that I have, clearly, from my mom's side and from my dad's side, is the gift of showing love through food, and how that shows up and who I am and what I do. I didn't get that just because of who I am. I got it because of who I'm a part of. And so to continue to share that. And so I had to stop being sad. I was like, I was like, oh, something, something. I was in a Pookie moment, but I had to get, not the bougie Pookie, like the hood Pookie. I was a little hood Pookie, but I had to realize I had to accept that that's just what it was. It wasn't what I would have liked it, but I had to cherish what I did have, and I do have a lot to cherish. And I even based my Mother's Day program I did last Friday for for my job based on the memories of my grandmother and my cousin that wrote the book. So
That's
But,
beautiful.
yeah, but what I also think, I mean, and I don't know for anyone else listening now or later, for me, right, what resonated with me was it took her 20 years to write the book, right? And how that, and for me, what resonated is Theodora, it took her 20 years, and I don't know why it took her 20 years, but Theodora, don't let the book that's in you take you 20 years, right? So just you sharing that, and also you not even realizing, right? It didn't take you 20 years to write the book that you wrote, right? And so it's such a powerful lesson, like, because that's part of collecting the evidence, right? We don't know why it took her 20 years,
Oh, I do.
but
I know why.
so you
Because
know
she
why.
had
I
over,
don't know
yeah. Right.
why.
Because she had over 200 recipes in her cookbook. So
Oh.
all of these recipes are in her head. She's old school, so she never used the measuring cup. She just knew what worked. She knew from the taste how much seasoning to put on a batch of chicken, how what which greens that you use for this recipe. So she literally had someone working with her for 20 years to transfer all those recipes that she had in her head that she just did from cooking for over 50 years for her family and community, to transform those from what was in her head to tangible recipes that any one of us could follow.
I love
So
it.
so that's
I
why it
love
took
it.
her. Yeah.
And I love, so
So
that even resonates even more because, right, she had a reason.
yeah.
Right? She
Yeah.
had a reason for those 20 years.
Right. But not only that, not only did it take her 20 years to do it, but she didn't start until she was 69.
Absolutely.
Exactly. She did
That's
it.
right. That's right.
So
That's
that's
right.
the other thing, right?
If
She did
someone
it.
invited her to do it, someone asked her to do it, she never thought of this was not her thought, original thought. Someone that loved her food so much, that was raised up on her food, said, Miss Emily, why don't you write a book? And she looked at them like, what? Write a book? And they said, I'll help you. So that was a 20-year project.
But look at
What
how
a
much came.
labor of love.
It was a
Exactly,
labor
right?
of love.
The labor
Yeah.
of love, right? The
Yeah.
the fact that you're never too old, right? Which we
Right.
talked about,
Right.
right? You know what I mean?
Yes.
So all the things that we talked about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was she's an example of.
And God can use anybody to shed light on what's in you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and the power of yes. Because when they said to her, "Why don't you write this book?" She could have been like, "Whether you're gonna help me or not, I'm not doing it." And she
Right.
said yes.
Yes, you did.
Yes, yes. And so
Yes.
for me, the thing that I would dwell on that I couldn't control, there are many, I'm sure we all have many, but
Yeah.
the one
Mhm.
that comes to mind is wellness. Wanting
Mm.
it more for others than they want it for themselves.
Yes.
Oh.
Knowing that I have the information and access to what can help, and the refusal is still there. For a long time, that bothered me beyond measure. I mean, I would literally call people, come on, you can do it. I'm cheering this person on,
Right.
knowing that your life can be better. The quality of your life can be so much different. You don't have to live beneath what you have now. I mean, you don't have to live this way. You can be better. There's so much, I'm just going on and on. And they're like, yeah, okay. And so I had to learn that I cannot want it more for the
Right.
person than they want it for themselves. And now there are times I'm dealing with a situation now where 2 years ago we could have addressed this thing when it was this big, right?
Right.
Now it's this big, and you're like, okay, I want it to work now.
Right.
So
but that's important, Netta. I think that's important because I think all of us have experienced that, especially doing what we're doing now, right? Like, you being a coach, I being a coach, Sheila, the notary and the nails, and Regina, you and your cooking, right? Because there are some days that's where the uncertainty kicks in, because you're like, I'm out here, I'm sharing all this information, I'm telling people how great it will be and why they should do it and how it will work, and you're wondering, why don't they want to do it? Right. And like I had to realize that, the people that really want to change their lives and really want to do something different, those are the people that eventually, like, it will click and it will come. But you can't allow that to mess with your mindset and make you uncertain about what you're doing. Right. Make you want to stop what you're doing. But it's so true. And then, like you said, by the time they come to you, it's like an emergency and we need to fix all of this right away.
So let me just piggyback on that. When I was in school going for my graduate degree, and it was in human services, and one of the things that the dean would tell us, he said, now, you're going to be learning a lot of things to help people. You're going to be learning how to, help them in their different situations. And, but you have to understand that if they refuse all the advice you give them, they have the right as adults to say no.
Yes.
And the only thing you can do is your due diligence. I have taken that attitude with me when I worked in social services as a case manager, and even when I was at Dress for Success, the women coming in for interviews and employment and stuff, and we're pouring and we say, if you do it like this, or you say it like that, or you bring this information, you're going to get a real strong opportunity for this such and so. And then you follow up and be like, hey, so how did it turn out? And you get, I really decided I'm going to go a different route. And you're like, go a different what? Like, you on the other end of the phone, and you want to say some things, but you still can't, right? Because professionally speaking, you got to respond in a professional manner. So I'm like, you decided that you didn't want to take the job that was guaranteed? Oh, okay, so what are you doing right now? Oh, you just going to rest and think about it. Okay. So, there were times where I wanted to, like, but then I had the part that I remember was, I always remember what he said. He said, you, as much as this information may help them and make a positive impact in their lives, if they refuse to take the service or the direction, you have to respect their decision and let it go. And that was some of the hardest stuff, even now where I work. I mean, I talk about cooking, but I'm a vocational recreational coordinator. So big part of what I do also is around helping people become employed, working the resumes and that sort of thing. It's like pulling teeth.
Yeah.
It's like pulling teeth. Yeah. And you just got to be like, okay, not today. You're not going to meet with me today. Okay. Is next Monday good? 10 o'clock? Okay. I'm going to wait for you to come. Okay. No problem.
Yep. You have to respect the fact that they get to choose.
They get to choose.
Exactly. I just had a conversation with someone, I want to say about a month ago. And, I was like, I'm calling because so-and-so asked me to tell you about such and such, right? And I said, but here's the thing. I am never going to tell anybody what they should or should not do.
Yep.
So I'm just delivering this information to you.
Yep.
And then you can decide what you want to do. And you can decide if you want to talk to the person about it, right?
Absolutely.
But that is one of the biggest lessons that I have learned. And I think also, as being in human resources, right? God bless you. Because a lot of times you find yourself, right, coaching or because that's the other thing I realized, right? For most of my career, I was coaching people, right? And then finally, when it came time to be a certified coach, I was like, people were like, "Oh, you want a coach?" I'm like, "No, I wasn't certified, right?" As it, but the one thing I learned is as stressful as it was, because there would be employees and I'd be like, why don't you go for that job? You would be great for that job, right? And I had to realize that all I could do is encourage them. All I could do is tell them why I thought they were great for it. But they had right, the opportunity to say yes or no, right? And there were cases where there was one guy where he was like, no, I never want to be a supervisor, right? But I did get the opportunity to see him go there, right? Because I had planted the seed, right? And you know what? I can't make him do it, right? He can choose. Right? So I think sometimes it's all about planting that seed as well. But I say that to say is that sometimes we have to plant that seed in ourselves, right? To help us get past fear and the uncertainty.
That brings me to the next statement. Take your own advice. It says, ask yourself, if a friend came to me with this worry or concern, what would I tell them? Imagining your situation from the outside can often provide perspective and fresh ideas.
And that's a big one for me. Because I will be, listen, I'm the queen of you should, let me help you do that. I hope you put, and then I'm like, okay, what are you going to do? And so now I really do have to sit back and really take my own advice, right? I have to remember what I told somebody else to do, what I helped somebody else do, right? How I help somebody move through some stuff. Because, I'm the queen of, I can help the world.
Right.
But then I'm like sitting back like, what are you doing? Right. And so I'm glad that, I have kind of gotten, and which is why I'm really grateful that I did take the journey to becoming a coach, because a lot of times I coach myself. Right. Because, part of it is, one, I want people to know that I'm coaching, that I'm not perfect. Like, listen, I'm going through stuff too. We just gonna be on this journey together, but it actually helps me so I can be better for the people that I'm coaching.
And of course, as coaches, we don't tell people what to do. We ask questions and help them get clear on what they want to do.
Yes,
exactly. I just had that whole conversation with someone. I said, listen, honestly, everything is inside of you. I'm just going to ask you a lot of questions that's going to bring it out of you. And then help you come up with a plan and a toolkit, right? So you can sustain it, right?
Absolutely.
Take your own advice.
So what was that, number 5?
That 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That was number 6.
Number 6. All right.
I'll just quickly tell you the rest of them, just so we complete the 10. Engage in self-care. Seek support from those you trust. I think we hit on these. Control what you can and ask for help. We hit all of those.
Yes. Yes.
And I think probably like those last 5 are the ones that are really, really difficult, right? Because it really does involve you taking care of you, using your own skill sets, being able to allow yourself that mind shift.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I think that's one of the important things. Like, it's 8:59. We'll probably go a little over. We always do. It's okay. But, I'll consider this my final thought. But I will say, whether I'm doing individual coaching or whether it's my group, my e-learning coaching platform, right? Everything starts with mindset for me. That's like with all of my clients, like we start there, because I'm like, you have to get this shift in your mindset, which is why, one session doesn't help, right? Because it's going to take you at least 2, 3, 4 a month, like really just to focus on how do I shift my mindset. And honestly, I will say to people, right, I still am working on that. It's a daily.
It's ongoing.
It's definitely ongoing.
And it should be.
Every day.
Right.
right? It's every day. It's that intention and being intentional about what you're thinking, what
Yes.
you're watching, what you're listening to, who you're listening to. So I would say to anybody listening right now, I'm going to listen to this later, right? You know, if you don't do any other work, the work I encourage you to do is on shifting your mindset, is really trying, really, like one of my programs talks about the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset.
Mm.
But before you even get there, I think you also have to just think about, like what Regina spoke about earlier, right? Is that negative versus positive, right? How do you shift?
Yes.
Right? Think about a job interview, right? What do they always tell you when they ask you a question, right? And they ask you what your weakness is, they tell you to turn that weakness into a positive, right? So
Right.
if you apply that to just daily shifting your mindset and your thoughts, right? Little by little, it becomes a habit. And then you begin to see the changes in every other area of your life.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to give my final thoughts, and just say that some fear is actually healthy, because that is the start of making it your motivation, right? So that little bit of fear push you to do what it is that you are destined to do.
I think I'm gonna piggyback off of that a little bit and say, for my final word thought is, as I'm getting older, I'm realizing when I get fearful that I have to test it against the Word of God.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know oftentimes the fear isn't something where I think I have a lack of, or it's a measuring up, or can I? It amounts to, can I measure up? Do I have blah blah? So then I'm like, wait a minute, who says I don't have it? It's not the Father. So where's that coming from?
Mm-hmm.
So then I have to ask myself, why am I fearful about
Mm-hmm.
this thing? And then take the steps to work towards getting over that fear and focusing more on what positive outcome I want. So I think the fear helps if it opens you up to question, like Sheila said, question why you fearful, then get reinforcement on the positive end on how to overcome that, so you could do the thing that you know is meant for you to do.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Some of the same things that I wanted to share. I'll just say one of the scriptures that gets me through moments of apprehension, not always fear,
Right,
apprehension.
right.
I can do all things through
Yes.
Christ who gives me strength. And so all leaves nothing out.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
so when the fear and uncertainty comes, what is the root cause? And is it true? Is it absolutely true? Can I know it's true? And so that gets you to the awareness of where it's coming from, what the root of this fear really is. And as Sheila was saying, is this going to motivate me? Or is this really cause to pause? Again, you have to get clear. The awareness of it is very important. What is the root? Is it really true? And is it something God wants me to do? As Regina was saying, past that thing, it's got to go through the word filter for me. So if
Yes.
it doesn't match with God's word, then I know where it's coming from.
Got
So
it.
and then I can be clear on what the next steps are.
Right.
And just to piggyback off of that, right, is the other thing that I just want to say is this: for every situation that you go through in life, whether it's fear, whether it's uncertainty, whether it's good, whether it's like, there is, for anything that you're struggling with, there's a scripture in the Bible
Mm-hmm.
that goes along with it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so if you do if you do just realize that the Bible is the life manual,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
right? And so if you
Yes.
really, because remember there was a time where every hotel you go into, I don't know if they still do it, right? What used to be in the drawer,
The
The
Bible.
Bible.
right? And
Mhm.
so it is really a life manual. And if you really take the time to read it, and even like I just read somewhere recently, right? Is people like, oh, how should I read it? Should I read it chronologically? Should I read New Testament first? And somebody was like, sometimes you just read based on what you need,
Mm-hmm.
right? What are you going through in that moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that's how maybe this is a moment when I need Esther, right?
Right.
Versus Joe, right? Versus Moses, right? So what is your circumstance or your situation? Because when you find that scripture, then it will lead you. Like, if you're struggling with trust, right? You might need Hebrews, right? Right? Because believing in the things that you cannot see, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Mhm.
um, just keeping it real, whatever you believe in. Because I know, there might be some people that can't relate, whatever. There's something that you believe in, and whatever that is, I would say you need to use that as your guide to getting you through some of these things that can trip you up in life. Like, one of the things I posted today was on getting up, those people that get up every Monday morning, right? You got a job, but you're dreading, right, to go to work, right? And really said, like, just think about what's stopping you and blocking you from changing that situation.
Mhm.
Is it fear? Is it an uncertainty? Is it being afraid to let go or release this job that you hate so much, right?
Yeah.
So, I would just say that again, like my final word, right?
The final.
My final word is, really for those of you who are believers, if you put your Bible on the shelf and it's getting a little dusty, dust it off and pick it up, and everything that you need, you're gonna find right there in that book.
Yep.
Yep. So
Yep.
we thank you for tuning in. We thank you for being here with us on the New You Nation Network. We ask you to like and share this video and this platform and all the others on the platform. This is nourishing and we hope nurturing content that will help you to live the best life that you can live. And just get away from some of the negativity that's out there in the world. When you want to get away from it, come over to the New You Nation Network, and get yourself out of that little bit of negativity. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again next Monday at 8 p.m. And as we normally will say, truth
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 plus
plus
transparency
transparency
equals
equals healing.
healing.
here.
Good
Have a
night.
great
Good
night.
night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, y'all.